Welcome to EDMworks Data Practitioner Series on managing data about people. This course is a general awareness module covering the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, known as GDPR, key facts and impacts. The big issue is managing data about people for the legitimate purpose of your organisation. Now, GDPR explains the rules, constraints, the obligations for data on EU citizens. It also describes the penalties for misuse. So, in this course, we're going to provide an overview of the General Data Protection Regulation within the broader context of managing data about people. It describes the background to GDPR, the key features, the roles, responsibilities, and the approach for dealing with it. Now, by the end of this course, you will be able to explain the reasons for the creation of GDPR, explain its context within the overall challenge of managing data about people. GDPR is simply one of the many things that people have to address over the next 2 years in order to improve the way they manage data about people. You will also be able to state the content of the reform package, because there's more to the EU's reform package than just GDPR. There is a directive as well, and also to look at and know the implementation dates. You will be able to describe the scope of organisations impacted, describe the scope of the data that it covers, both identification data, sensitive data and other data. List the key rights it grants to users and employees. These are the data subjects who are protected by the regulation, and they have many new rights which have big impacts on what organisations have to do and how they have to manage data about people. We will explain in more detail and give you some examples of data subjects, data controllers and data processors, which are the key terms in GDPR. You will be able to describe the rights and obligations a company has for processing and storing data. List the penalties for non-compliance, which are now significant, and this is to show the intention that data protection is of critical importance and people must pay attention to it. And finally, we'll describe how the implementation of GDPR should be aligned with other activities that are going on within the organisation, so that you get an alignment across operational activities, risk activities, governance activities, accountability for senior management, so that we get a consistent approach to dealing with these things. The course is broken down into 3 sections. The first section is about setting the context for GDPR. As I mentioned earlier, GDPR is one of many things that affect the way organisations manage data about people. So we need to think about the broader context of what is going on within the digital world. Once we've looked at that, then we'll go through the intention of GDPR at a very high level, and then take a look at the other things that are actually impacting organisations that lead them to having to take a broader context for managing data about people. The next section will be to introduce you in detail to the General Data Protection Regulation and explain it. So explaining why is it needed, how does it affect you in the different roles that you might occupy as a consumer, as a manager, as an employee. Look at the new legal framework, go through and examine the rights, or just list the rights that data subjects are now allowed or have been granted. Look in more detail about what the data subjects, data controllers and data processors are. Make sure we understand the roles they occupy, and then go into a bit more detail about exactly what data controllers and data processors have to do. The Data Protection Officer is a role that's been around for some time, 20 years or so. This is now an expanded role, and also organisations that previously haven't necessarily had to have a Data Protection Officer now will need to have them. This is particularly around the data processor area. We'll look at the legislative authorities within the EU and within the member states, and look at the powers that they have, and also look at the sanctions that they can now impose. And then finally, how my organisation can prepare for the 25th of May 2018, which is the implementation date. As I mentioned earlier, GDPR is one of many things, so we need to make sure that we have a joined up approach across the organisation, a collaborative approach that makes sure that we get an alignment around operational risk, governance, compliance type of activities to make sure that we roll GDPR implementation out as smoothly and effectively as possible. There are also a whole series of things that we need to be doing right now in terms of planning, getting budgets sorted, getting teams organised. We need to make a point about culture, values and people, because without doubt, GDPR is an extensive regulation. It will cut across many different areas of the business, so we need to make sure that culturally we bake data protection right into the foundations of the business, and that we understand the benefits to the organisation of having a strong culture around data protection and what it will do for improving the trust that customers or clients or members or patients have with the organisation. So key regulation is a very important thing indeed. And then finally, it's about making sure that as we do these things, that we build up skills and capabilities within people, and that we create a trail of evidence so that if for whatever reason breaches do happen, and they may happen, that we are able to provide evidence and assurance that we have done everything we can do to make sure that we are looking after people's data and placing it in as safe custody as is possible.